Welcome, everyone, to our The Road Home series presented by GMC. They're such an important ally at the intersection of HBCU culture, consumerism, lifestyle, and business as we celebrate the spirit of cultural capital, community, and connectivity during this year's HBCU homecoming season across the country. And for everyone joining us in the audience today, please know that you are the key to culture and Black wealth beyond the HBCU yard. So thank you for not only being with us right now, but for joining us in the work ahead. For those who are not familiar with me, I'm Corey Hale, the CEO and co-founder of Culture Banks, and we're going to discuss solutions to creating future wealth as we challenge and rethink our current electric vehicle ecosystem. We're going to reimagine a new outlook along the road that ensures we culturally understand the foundations for creating wealth through innovation. With that in mind, everyone, let's jump right into our conscious conversation around homecoming culture and Black wealth with our excellent panelists today, starting with Camille C. Terry, who has over a decade of experience in clean tech that led her to create Charger Help, a reliable electric vehicle charging infrastructure alongside her co-founder, Yvette Ellis. The clean tech company, everyone, which is powered by technology, uses data to identify and provide maintenance and repair services for electric vehicle charging stations and equipment. Previously, though, Camille worked at EV Connect, where she was the director of programs for the electric vehicle charging station network provider. And in that role, she structured and led teams to execute infrastructure projects in the United States, Australia, and Canada for both commercial and government entities. She's also an advisor for Edge Energy and a co-creator of Culture and Climate, which is an annual gathering in Los Angeles of investors, founders, industry experts, venture capitalists, and speakers, all focused around clean tech. And joining us as well, we're fortunate to have one of her investors at Charger Help, Brandon Ziegler, who is an investor, philanthropist, and founder, managing partner at 813 Ventures, which is a venture capital firm and syndicate investing in early stage market scalable solutions that create pathways to economic prosperity for those that have been denied opportunities, climate justice, and underestimated founders. Brandon also serves as the director of impact investments at Global Endowment Management. Previously, he was a program officer at the Walton Family Foundation, and he believes authenticity and serving those who are underinvested in is a main thing for him. He's also a connector. Yes, he is, paying it forward and pouring it into others so that they develop and supersede their own beliefs. Brandon does hold a BS in psychology from Davidson College and a master's in education, policy, and management from Harvard University. And if that's not enough, he is currently pursuing his MBA at Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management. Camille and Brandon, thank you guys both so much for being a part of today's conversation. And I don't know how you guys have so much energy and time to do all of these other things, but I'm grateful that you guys made time for today's discussion. And I want us to dive right in and kick it off with you, Camille, because I am so impressed by this company that you and your co-founder created with Charger Help, sits squarely right in the center of innovation and culture with electric vehicle charging. I'd love for you to share about this really unique space that Charger Help operates in and where we can all plug in.
Oh, sure. Well, one, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the energy. I'm here for it. I mean, here's the thing. I randomly stumbled into clean tech almost about 7 years ago. And I tell you, I'm from South Central Los Angeles, and I really never really understood how the environment was impacting my health, my family's health, my mother's health, until I got into this space. But when I got into the space and saw that folks were, electrifying their vehicles, and there was these things called charging stations, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. But then when I found out that these charging stations weren't working, or that it was hard to solve some of the issues, and there was millions and billions of dollars being pushed into this space, I really saw that there was a unique opportunity to solve something, solve a real problem, but to do it in a way that maybe has not been seen before. And what is that, right? It's through focusing on workforce development, it's through focusing on technology, but most importantly, it's really given a platform for what it looks like to build a good business and a good company. And I'm excited to delve into that more with y'all today.
Wow, Camille, that is super impressive. And thank you so much for sharing. Brandon, I'm going to throw it over to you. I love that you are one of Camille's investors, and not just because, you're running your own venture fund, but because we really need more people in your position, right? Investing in these underserved entrepreneurs like Camille, because we have seen in recent years, lots of organizations really coming online to support some underrepresented, not just founders, but fund managers alike, with strategic approaches, right, to really building up a strong future. What is it, in your opinion, in the ecosystem that excites not just you, but the work that you're doing at 813 Ventures and through the syndicate when it comes to supporting, right, these types of founders?
Yeah, Corey, thanks for the energy. I'm gonna follow up on Camille with that. Happy to be here, happy to share space with you all and everyone here. There have always been fund managers of color with awesome ideas. They've had great thesis, they've had great deal flow, and they've had connections to innovative companies like Charger Health. Honestly, right now, I'm excited about the current context in the moment we're living in. It can be leveraged to increase support. And when I say support, I want to be very specific. I'm talking about capital that is allocated to these fund managers. They've always been ready. They've always been prepared. They will create this great multiplier effect. I mean, an 8x return on $5 million fund is not the same as a 5x return on a $100 million fund. So when I say like awesome fund managers of color are doing great work, I mean that. They're here, they've always been here, and more capital would lead to bigger returns and bigger impact for their investors and their communities. Supporting founders like Camille is easy, right? She's dope. She solved an issue. She saw this issue, she created a solution for it. And being able to have more folks who can support founders like her would be awesome. So I'm excited about the moment we find ourselves in now.
I love that you're so excited about this moment, because that's actually what we need to continue fueling, right, growth. And as you mentioned, these huge returns, right? We know that Black and brown founders are capable of that, as well as fund managers on their side of the portfolio. All right, Camille, I want to bring it back really quickly, specifically to the electric vehicle space. I was doing a little bit of research, right, before we got into today's conversation, and I actually found a recent survey that was conducted by Consumer Reports, where they found the overall interest in purchasing electric vehicles is high, with 38% of Black respondents and 43% of Latinos saying they would definitely or seriously consider purchasing or leasing an EV as their next vehicle. However, this idea of charging deserts, let's get into that, because it's something that you slightly hinted at, especially if the charging stations aren't working. This is something, right, that very much exists in the Black community. They don't have places, right, to charge their cars. They're trying to grapple with that as a start to figure out whether or not they can actually commit to buying an electric vehicle. How does Charger help actually create opportunities for this particular community in the EV space?
Sure. The way that we think about it is really through advocacy and then also job creation, right? From an advocacy standpoint, since our inception, not only has Charger Help been at the forefront of ensuring that charging infrastructure is deployed, equitably, but also that they work, right? And work for everyone. Because here's the thing is that the air that we breathe, like, while it does impact, folks in my community more significantly than others, but this air through the vehicles that we're driving right now is toxic for everyone. And so we've really been gung-ho on like, okay, yes, let's get charging infrastructure out there. Also, let's create standards around uptime. Let's make sure that we have what we call service level agreements. And let's ensure that the data that's needed in order to fix these stations and identify when they are experiencing issues is readily available to the public. And then the last piece is that they're easy to repair, right? That there may be some manufacturers where they create parts where it's, more specialized parts, but we're deploying this infrastructure all across the United States. It shouldn't be as hard as, trying to find a part overseas in order to fix the charging station in the community. So that's one thing that we really have been focused on. And then on the job creation piece, one of the things I say all the time, specifically within climate, is that we haven't found all the solutions, and the folks that have been given the opportunities to come up with solutions always look a certain type of way, right? And they ain't figured it out yet. So we believe that in order for us to actually have better solutions, we have to be more inclusive of other viewpoints, right? Because the way that I build my business as a Black woman from South Central Los Angeles is definitely going to be the way different, than somebody who grew up, in Palo Alto or whatever have you. And so for us, everything about moving forward, even with charging deserts and everything, comes down to what types of jobs are we creating? How are we creating economic mobility? This is going to be one of the biggest economic shifts in our lifetime, probably bigger than the internet. If we switch to electricity as the new fueling source, so how are we ensuring folks all throughout the community are making, money off of the space? And the last thing is, right, that there are Black and brown folks who make charging stations. So how are we ensuring, right, that their charging stations are also the ones that are being deployed? I'm very passionate about this, as you can see. But it just must be said. It just must be said.
Yes, no, it must. I love the fact, Brandon, I saw you shaking your head a lot. I didn't know if you wanted to add something on the back of that before I ask the next question.
Yeah, I mean, everything that Camille said is so true when you think about creating a more inclusive ecosystem. We need to have a diversity of thought, a diversity of ideas, a diversity of solutions, and that does not come from a monolithic viewpoint or perspective. How she articulated it perfectly. How she is building her business out of South Central LA compared to somebody in Palo Alto, very different. And because of that difference, it's going to bring in more people. It's going to create a more inclusive ecosystem that's going to not only embrace people, but also help solve some real issues for communities. So I'm excited about everything she's doing. I'm excited about where we're going.
I really need an electric vehicle. It's only because I live in New York City and I don't drive, so I don't have any car. It's not against electric vehicles. I just don't have any car. But when I get back to a city where I drive every day, I'm definitely going to get an electric vehicle. And this is like powered me up even more. So like, Corey, we have to make this happen. All right, Brandon, I want to talk a little bit more broadly about wealth, specifically as this important component of Americans' economic status. And Camille alluded to, this is going to be the next big thing. It could be bigger than the internet in terms of transformation. And we as a community, as Black people, we cannot be left behind. And one of the main ways that people actually go about creating wealth, which a lot of people don't necessarily understand this, is from building a business, perhaps like Camille's, that will involve some type of large exit. That's the main way people in this country actually build wealth. And in fact, the Peterson Foundation found that among college educated households, white families had a net worth of $360,000. Latinx families had a net worth of $73,000, and Black families came in with a net worth of only $68,000. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Brandon and Camille, if you would like to share as well, if you have ideas. How important is it, though, to put more founders in a position to raise, right, millions of dollars as a proponent of closing the wealth gap?
Yeah, I mean, those numbers, there's excitement around those numbers because there's opportunity, but there's also disappointment because of the system we've created that excludes certain people. I mean, if you look at different data too, some folks say Black family household net worth is sometimes closer to $1,500, right? There's a lot of work to do. At 813 Ventures, we believe there are no low income people. There are people who've been denied opportunities that lead to economic mobility. And we invest in early stage companies that create those pathways to economic prosperity for those that have been denied these opportunities. So in my mind, it is critically important to support founders like Camille. They are creating wealth for investors and communities. Camille and her team are actually creating pathways that lead to economic prosperity for their investors, also through their workforce development efforts. It's this whole phenomena, and I say phenomena because some people don't like to talk about it. Some people act like it's mythical, but it's this double bottom line, right? Charger Health is positively impacting the planet. It's positively impacting communities. And I believe it has great potential to generate outsized financial returns. What's also nice about where we're at when it comes to creating Black wealth and just creating economic mobility for folks is due to the democratization of private investing, we live in a world where you no longer must invest $50,000 or $100,000 or more as an individual to get in on the cap table of some of these early startups. As a syndicate, we also think about creating access and wealth for limited partners who can invest as little as $1,000 in some of these opportunities. So overall, like, we can no longer just afford to consider large exits. We must understand the outcomes on our planet and our communities, and especially our people.
Brandon, does A13 Ventures have like a podcast or something y'all are doing to further educate? Because I know that you have a lot of wisdom around this, and I think that this is like because like you saying something just that brilliant, like you don't necessarily need $50,000, $100,000 to come in on an angel. Like, get in with a syndicate. Maybe you only have $1,000. Like, this is information people need to hear.
Yeah, we're working on some things to get the message out there, and it's how I started. It's how I started, right? I never invested $50,000 or $100,000 into deals initially, right? Like, I started. Somebody gave me access and through a syndicate, and I was able to start building my investment portfolio off of these deals, and it's grown from there. So, I mean, I think it's one of those messages we have to figure out how to communicate, because there are these opportunities to generate outsized returns and outsized wealth, and to be able to support founders like Camille, companies like Charge Your Help, and the many others that are doing some wonderful things.
And I want to add two things to that. One of the things is actually three. So the first thing is that when we first went out and raised our seed round, we raised about 2.75 million, turned away 8 million, could not find a Black fund to invest in us because climate was not in their thesis, right? A lot more folks were focused on investing maybe in like barbershop apps or different things like that. But like delving into climate was just like, well, we don't understand climate. We don't get it. And I'm just like, everybody's investing in climate. What are we doing? But from there, right, we started to work with Slauson & Co., which is another venture fund, and we created Culture and Climate. And at Culture and Climate, we bring in Black and brown investors, angel investors, VCs, and we actually host classes that are actually given by the folks from specific verticals. So like if you're in transportation, you might have a class that's given by myself. If you're in buildings, you might have a class given by Block Power, which is a huge Black-owned company. And we're like, hey, this is this space. This is how people have invested. These are still the holes in the market. And from there, when we went out and did our next round, our bridge round where 813 came in, we ended up with 4 Black funds. And a lot of those folks actually attended the Culture and Climate event. But to your point, Corey, it's like we have a huge opportunity for education, education around climate, the space itself, but also too, what does it take to be an angel? What types of questions that you should ask? Because even high net worth Black individuals don't typically do venture, and so even when we were explaining how, what our process is to very high network individuals, they're like, well, we don't get it, and so there is this huge opportunity for education. And the last thing I'll say just about economic mobility, all of our technicians start off with a minimum of $30 an hour, and all of them get equity in the company because we were very interested in this idea of how do you incentivize workers early on, who are your frontline workers. And we believe that the best way to do that is through equity. So we're all moving towards our own, own pathway to economic mobility. So just wanted to add that.
I love that you dropped that gem. Also, quick shout out to Austin over at Slauson & Co.
Yes.
He actually was in one of our previous sessions, which I didn't realize that that Slauson was one of your investors. I definitely would have emailed him.
Oh, they're not. They're not an investor.
They're not.
Culture and Climate together. Yeah,
okay,
they missed out, but it's fine.
That's their loss. That's okay. You guys are still out here winning. That's what matters, but still nothing but love for Austin and the work they do over at Slauson. I want to stick on the topic of climate though, and broaden this out, because a lot of people actually don't really understand how climate disparities really affect entire communities. And I'd love to get your take specifically on the broader climate situation as it speaks to Black and brown communities and this transition, right, to the EV space. Is this really an important facet to help address the gaps and mitigate some of the systemic barriers to adoption and achieve environmental justice if we're able to perhaps have more education around EVs?
Yeah, and I mean, like even outside of EVs, everything that we use today, can have a negative effect on our health. From even the stove, like if you have a gas burning stove, there's actually been reports showing how much how unhealthy that is for you to be breathing in. You even think about, growing up when our heater didn't work, we used to open up the oven. Like that's very unhealthy, right? But now you have like electric stoves, like everything that we touch that is off of like oil and gas. Like these are all opportunities for folks to tap in order to create something that's more sustainable and more healthy. So not only is it a huge business opportunity, it also is just calling into light, how much the things that we use day to day, it really impacts our health. And then on specifically with EVs, one of the things that we've been looking at a lot is just even how car OEMs market EVs and even the type of electric vehicles that are out in the market. I've been super excited to see, new electric vehicles, even from what GMC is doing as well, coming out into the market. Because here's the thing, your mass adopter isn't necessarily going to be like, I care all the time about my health. They're going to want a cool car, right? So like if you make a cool car that's about the future and you market it well and it's hip, like people will buy the car. And so that's the part that I've been like super excited to see, is all of the different types of cars, that are coming into play that are electric and are cool, and like people will just drive because they look nice. So yeah.
No, I love that, because people will definitely drive anything that's cool. And I feel like Black culture really sets a lot of the trends for what's cool in general. So another reason that the education for our community to help, push this movement forward is super important. But I love that you brought up, it's not just EVs when it comes to environmental impacts. And this is something we actually covered at Culture Banks maybe about a year ago. We were talking about the impact of climate change on red line neighborhoods, which are those neighborhoods that used to be segregated. And the fact that in previously red line neighborhoods, there are half as many trees planted in those neighborhoods, and that the temperature, right, in those neighborhoods tends to be 2 to 3 degrees higher than adjourning like white neighborhoods, and how this has created a more, systemic problem over time. But all of these are things, right, that we need education around, and we need to figure out, what we can do as a community, not just through EVs, to move forward. All right, guys, I'm gonna close it out, the Q&A part, with this next question. This is gonna go out to both of you all, though. This is, who do you guys turn to for guidance, and what actually keeps you all optimistic about the future of investing and the broader like EV space? Brandon, I'll start with you.
There's some wonderful people in this ecosystem that I've had the privilege, and I'm fortunate enough to have relationships with, that I can go to and get advice from. I can get guidance and honestly just learn and soak this up, right? Climate tech, the EV space, is relatively new for me, right? And it came to this understanding of realizing that when it comes to climate degradation, like it affects all of us, but it doesn't affect us all equally, right? Like Camille mentioned some of the stats, you, Corey, talked about some of the stats, right? When you think about some of the areas, there are opportunities, right? Like there's so much challenge that exists here. When you think about the fact that Black people in America today breathe 56% more pollution than they cause, whereas white Americans breathe 17% less pollution than they actually cause. When you think about indigenous communities' impact in helping to prevent climate issues at fifth of the cost of NGOs and governments around the world, there's so much opportunity. And there are folks like DJ Harris at Elemental Accelerator, Ty Eldridge at Include Ventures, Juan Muldoon at Energize VC, Von Blake at Blue Bear. Those are all investors with great, like truly great insight, who I have the privilege of being able to text or call and get on the horse if I don't understand something. I also got to mention folks like Sherman Williams at AIN Ventures, Brendan Hoffman and Antonio Key at Sunset Partners, and there are many more. But these are all folks that I'm just fortunate enough to be in my network that I can tap for guidance. And what keeps me optimistic is just seeing the attention, just seeing the movement of investors and founders and capital that are now operating in the EV space. There's so much to do to get more widespread adoption and make the space more accessible and more affordable. And we need to make sure that it becomes more affordable. But the work is intense and it's fun and it keeps a smile on my face.
I love that. What about you, Camille?
Yeah, I mean, for me, just around like business development and fundraising, we usually turn to our incubator, which is the LA Clean Tech Incubator, which has a lot of resources, and then also Elemental Accelerator that Brandon mentioned with DJ Harris. So those two entities are really powerhouses in this industry, and they're really have been so helpful in regards to increasing specifically Black and Brown, CEOs. And then the other piece to it, I turn in, like, I think that there's like a Oprah video where she just talks about, you can get advice from everyone, but you just got to go sit somewhere, get quiet and turn in, and whether that's you're connected to God or like whatever you believe in, just getting quiet. And so I find myself doing that a ton. We built Charger Hill, started in January 2020. Today, we're in all 50 states. We've raised over $7.9 million. And we employ, over 50 folks, in different varying capacities. And so you got to turn in for stuff like that, but it's been exciting. And then what keeps me optimistic, honestly, it's like, there's just too much opportunity. I think that we're extremely privileged to be born in a time like this. And within a moment like this, where you can actually really drive impact.
I love that. I love the optimism as well as we continue to move forward. I want to thank you guys both for answering all of these questions. So we're going to move away now from the Q&A portion, and now we're going to get to know you all as people a little bit better, and what we like to call here at Culture Banks our rapid fire section. So all you have to do is give me the first answer that comes to your mind as quickly as possible, and we'll just keep it moving very rapidly. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, Camille, we're gonna start with you. What motivates you personally to keep going and why?
Yeah, definitely my mom. My mom has been like my light. She's my biggest cheerleader. She passed away last year due to cancer, also just like an environmental thing. And I just know that, like, for folks that experience, different diseases and things like that due to the environment, like it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like, people do not have to die because of the products and things that we've made. And so I keep going for her, and to ensure that, other people won't have to lose people literally because of our environment.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your mother, Camille. Brandon, I'm gonna move it over to you as someone who's done quite a bit of investing at this point. What do you think are the 3 skills people need to be a successful entrepreneur?
Communication. You got to be able to confidently express your message, your vision, your work, acting upon feedback. And the key part of that is like discernment. You have to discern beneficial and actionable feedback, because not all feedback, not all advice is helpful. As Camille said, you got to turn in sometimes and reflect and say no. And sometimes you got to say yeah. And I think the third thing for me that comes to mind is courage. You have to be bold. You have to be brave. Entrepreneurs need to take risks to achieve their dreams, and anyone on the fence must understand that, even to tell themselves that. Like, you look in the mirror and you say, I'm bold. You say, I'm brave. When you're considering that path, you got to think about where you want to be and where you need to go, and just start moving in that direction.
All right. No, I love that. Camille, back to you. What time of day are you most productive?
Oh, I'm an early morning. So I'm a like 4:35. Get it all done before everybody else wakes up type of person.
That's like super early. See, to me, anything before 5 a.m. is super early. You can claim early bird starting at 5 a.m. You're talking at 4:30 a.m. That's super early.
Yeah. Well, I live on the West Coast and we work with people on the East Coast. So technically I'm behind by that time. You know what I mean? So it's like, you gotta play catch up.
No, I definitely get that. Brandon, back to you. What's your favorite life hack?
I could go the easy route and tell you my calendar on my phone, but if I think about wanting to become an angel investor 25 years ago, I would have had to gone about things very differently. So today I'm going to say the hack is really like current technology platforms that have created accessibility to private investment opportunities for those that have historically been included. It makes it easy to access these opportunities and actually be able to support founders nowadays, which wasn't in existence back in 20, 25 years ago.
All right. No, I love to hear that. Camille, back over to you. What is the one app that you can't live without?
10% Happier. It's a meditation app. It's the coolest meditation app ever.
So it's not like, is it like Calm?
It's better than Calm to me.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I try. I mean, no shade to Calm, and 10% Happier isn't paying me anything. However, I do really like their app.
No, I love that. I've never heard of this meditation app. I've only ever heard of Calm.
Yeah.
All right. I love that. Brandon, back over to you. Now, look, before I even ask this question, because Brandon is very well read, I hope he's thought about this, because anytime I come to this question, especially with people that I know read a lot, it's always a thing. But Brandon, the question is, what is the one book that has changed your life?
You make it hard because I want to talk about two.
See, I already knew going into it. I knew going into it. No one can give me one book.
I'm gonna give you one. I'll give you one book that changed my life, and then I'll mention a book that I place a lot of value in.
An honorable mention. Okay.
Honorable mention. Book that changed my life. Where do we go from here? Chaos or Community by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Like, that book is so before its time. When you just think about where we exist as far as like chaos or community politically in the United States right now, when we talk about the move for like racial equity, that book was written before its time. It's so applicable today. The lessons there are super important. And I think everybody should read that book. The honorable mention, I'll say High Growth Handbook by Live Good. Like, it's a study on the tactics and skills necessary to grow and scale startups from zero to exit. And for investors, it really creates a long-term pathway that demystifies what this process looks like and helps folks really uncover like delivering outsized returns. And in that way, thinking about that from an investor perspective, that can really develop life-changing wealth.
All right. I love that. And those books were definitely very different, serving different purposes. So we're going to let those slide with your books there, Brandon. All right. This is our final rapid fire question. Because at Culture Banks, there's nothing we love to do more than incorporate music with all of our business news content. With that being said, Camille and Brandon, what song is currently on repeat on your playlist?
I don't know if y'all heard about him yet. His name is LaRusso, and the song is called Baggage Claim. And it's like, Go Get That Bag. Y'all should listen to it.
LaRusso Baggage. I'm about to have to find it right now.
Yeah, LaRusso Baggage Claim. The coolest thing about this rapper though is that he's independent, and for his album it's Pay What You Wish. And he like revamped his whole backyard to make it like a concert center, and he made it Pay What You Wish. And Diddy showed up there. Like, it's crazy, but people could pay whatever they want to go see him and to get his album. And yeah, the song is called Baggage Claim, and the verse is Go Get That Bag.
Oh. We learn something every day. I'm gonna have to go listen to it, because Lord knows I need to go get a bag for myself. All right. So I need motivation. Brandon, what's on your playlist?
I'm gonna flip it. I'm not gonna talk about an individual song. I'm gonna give you my album that has been on repeat since it's come out. That new Black Thought, Cheat Codes.
Oh,
like
okay.
That's everything he touches is hot. Every album he's released, I love. And this one's another one that's a banger. It's deep. It makes you think about things, and it's definitely something that should be on repeat.
Okay, with the shout out to Black Thought, who also now is dipping his toes into investing, trying to wear an investor hat as well. All right, Cheat Codes, and you're saying the album from top to bottom, we can just let it play?
I just play straight. I don't skip anything.
Impressive,
right? I mean, it's hard to play an album from top to bottom nowadays.
Yeah.
Look at that. I love to hear it. Well, this concludes our rapid fire section and our overall conversation. Thank you both again for not just being open, honest, and authentic, but really bringing your light to this conversation. At Culture Banks, we can't do it without great people like you. So we're very, very grateful. And thank everyone for tuning in and watching. We are, of course, going to be back with more content, more conversations in 2023. Make sure you stay tuned. Follow us at Culture Banks on all social media platforms, and check out our website, culturebanks.com. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your day.